Hey, you guys. Hey, I have got some encouraging thoughts for you today. I have been driving our spring break and ended up listening to a podcast featuring Dr. Daniel Amen, I believe is the pronunciation. He has recorded lots of different PBS specials. He is a psychiatrist, and he had some really great tips that I think that all of us could use in our own life right now. And I know I could personally, I just gained so many different ideas from listening to this podcast. But his concept was just the statement was, don't believe everything you think. I thought it was a powerful statement. And what he talked about is that there's 70,000 different thoughts going through our brains every day. And what he described is that most of those thoughts are negative. And I know that right now, because our lives are so immersed by social media, the news, and just conversation with friends and family members, that a lot of the conversations that we're having are negative, which is basically creating more of what he called ants. And that just stands for automatic negative thoughts. And he said, by being responsive to these automatic negative thoughts, you can actually either ruin your mental picnic in life, or you can actually exterminate the ants and actually thrive in really challenging times. And he identified a couple of different things that were kind of like the most popular. He said there's lots of different automatic negative thoughts that we can have, and he even said that they're habitual, meaning that you can actually create habits around these thoughts. And because our brain repeats similar thoughts all the time, we can be overwhelmed by these ants. And I lived in California where there was lots of ants, lots of opportunities to have ants creeping into your garage, creeping into your house. And anytime that ants infested our lives, it was not a good thing. My mom would get out the R.A.I.D and spray the R.A.I.D, but there was things that we could do to actually exterminate the consequences of having ants in our life. And he talked about some of the things that we could do. And he also shared 9 specific ants or automatic negative thoughts that he said it would be really good to become aware of. And so I'd just like to share some of these with you and see if it's something that you've allowed to kind of sneak into your life without necessarily knowing. And so in terms of the popular ones, number 1 was black and white thinking. Have you gotten into it has to be this way or it has to be that way? Have you given no room for gray opportunities or gray variables that could end up happening that could be positive in your life and changing the way that you look at things? Focusing on the negative was number 2. We can choose what we focus on. You can choose to see opportunity is now here, or you could choose to see opportunity is nowhere. The thought process of choosing negative is something that may just be a negative response that you have happen automatically. It may be something that's habitual for you. But he said you can actually change that pattern. I'll share those ideas with you in just a second. The third one was fortune telling. Now, you may not be a fortune teller, but sometimes I think that we think about the future and we start to think about things as being absolutes or things that are going to happen. And we don't necessarily keep an open and curious mind to how we could potentially grow or how we could learn from experiences. Mind reading, thinking for other people what they may not be thinking. I know this is something that all of us fall prey to. Have you ever had an experience where you have thought about something in somebody else's mind and then you came to the conclusion after talking to them that they never thought that at all? They never thought a certain way about you? I know that that's something that all of us can fall prey to if we don't recognize it and exterminate it. The next one was thinking with your feelings. Yikes. Or how about this? Acting on your feelings. Sometimes we have feelings that aren't necessarily true, and we can't necessarily just operate our lives and make decisions just simply on feelings. Yes, we have our gut reaction, which we should follow, but there's also some processes that we should probably go through before just acting on our feelings or acting on our gut instincts. Next one was being ruled by shoulds. I love the phrase somebody said, don't should all over yourself. Sometimes we get our mind so beat up because we talk about all the things we should have done or all the things we should do that we're not, and we just beat ourselves up and blame ourselves to a point where we actually just want to give up, or we become so negative we take all the energy away from ourselves. Next one was labeling ourselves. Have you ever labeled yourself as being lazy or being fat or being anything that would be a negative label that you would put on yourself or put on other people? Sometimes we put on our government, or we put on our family or our work environment or our boss, and having that negative impact on people can actually be something that ruins your mental picnic, or ruins your picnic of life, if you were to use the analogy. The next one was taking things personally. Sometimes, in challenging times, people say things or do things that we can be taken offense to. But is it really something that was actually meant to hurt you? Or was it actually something that you overthought, or you took too much into consideration and you took on it as a personal vendetta against you? And then the ninth one was blame. Blaming other people, blaming other circumstances for why you're in the situation that you're in, that doesn't necessarily serve you. And so if you can take responsibility or accept responsibility for the circumstances that you have, and you respond in a positive way, you can extinguish those ants. So many of you are familiar with R.A.I.D as being kind of like a go-to for ant extermination. So if you just remember the letters R.A.I.D, and the first one was to recognize when you are going in that negative automatic thought process. So just recognizing it and being aware that these are some things that all of us are challenged with, and then being able to acknowledge it in writing. And if you actually write it down in a journal, write it down at the end of the day or beginning of the day or whenever it happens, and ask yourself these questions. Is this true? Does having this thought serve me? Is there another explanation or another way of looking at things that could be positive? And here's the last one. What advice would I give a friend who had this thought? If you can begin to acknowledge the fact that it's maybe just a negative thought, and if you've recognized it, you can identify it, and you can actually ask the question or acknowledge it by writing it down and then asking those questions. Sometimes just pausing for a moment can actually help you to address the issue. And then the I is initiate a response and talk back to it with a positive thought. I know some of us were good at talking back to our parents. Some of us may not have had some experience with that. I know I did. But what about the idea of talking back to your negative thoughts? Have you ever thought about doing that and actually combating the negative with positive? We're in a war sometimes with our own brain. And the question is, who are you allowing to win? Are you allowing the negative to win, or are you actually taking a more offensive strategy towards dealing with the negative? And then the D is to decide to take action. What are the things that you can do to take action? Well, you could pray, you could meditate, and really just get yourself centered and remind yourself of all the things that you can do. Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or think you can't, you are right. And it's a matter of the brain. Can you have a positive perspective in a negative situation? Of course. Viktor Frankl, Man Searching for Meaning, I believe that's the name of the book. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was dealing with people who had given up hope. They had lost their health. They didn't believe that anyone was coming to help them, and so many of them were committing suicide just because they wanted to end the pain. But what Viktor Frankl did was he repostured and created purpose and meaning to their life by helping them to understand by living they were fighting back against evil. By taking a positive mindset in a very tragic and horrible circumstance, it gave them purpose and meaning to their life. And so rather than taking their life, they found purpose in surviving and thriving and showing it to other people that it was possible that they could take away their freedom, they could take away their clothes, they could kill their family members, but they would not take away the purpose in their life. And so by taking a more positive mindset, by having gratitude, you're going to end up having a sense of, wow, this is really an opportunity for me. And, talking about starting off your day with a positive mindset, just answering the question, why will today be great? Why will today be positive? Where will I end up being able to do a random act of kindness? Or maybe I could do something that moves me forward. And then at the end of the day, take time and just identify what went well today. If you were to take that time to really address these problems, and if you go back to the R.A.I.D concept or the R.A.I.D acronym, you recognize it, you acknowledge it in writing, and you ask yourself the question, is it true? Does this serve me? Is there another explanation or another perspective that could be a positive opportunity in this? And what advice would I give a friend who had this thought? And then initiate a response and talk back to it. Talk to yourself. Now, it may seem a little bit weird, but if you don't talk to yourself mentally or actually physically, who will? Who will fill your cup? We all have to be responsible for filling our cup up with positivity. And then the D is to decide to take action. And motivation is the contraction between the word motive and the word action. So if you take action on your motives, which are positive thoughts, positive ideas, opportunities, you will move yourself forward. So in all of this negativity, let's extinguish or exterminate the ants, the red ants, the automatic negative thoughts, and let's start thinking more positively and taking action and serving other people, helping ourselves, getting projects done. Be mindful about all those things. And if you have more tips and ideas, post it in the comments. Let's keep looking and trying to celebrate opportunities where all of us can get better. And if this is encouraging to you, please share it with somebody else, and let's spread the word of positivity in the world. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.